What is the strict scrutiny legal test? Imagine a situation where a law tries to limit your rights, but the government has to prove it's doing so for a really important reason. That's where the strict scrutiny legal test comes into play. It's the highest standard courts use to decide if a law that affects fundamental rights or targets certain groups is fair. When a law involves rights like free speech, voting, or equal protection based on race or religion, courts don't take it lightly. They want to see if the government has a very strong reason for making that law. Under this test, the government must show three things. First, it needs to prove that the law serves a compelling government interest. This means the reason behind the law has to be very important, like protecting national security or preventing discrimination. It's not enough for the government to say it's just a good idea. The reason must be essential. Second, the law must be narrowly tailored. This means it should only do what's necessary to achieve the goal. It can't be too broad or affect more people than needed. For example, if a law bans all protests in a city to prevent violence, it might be too broad because it stops peaceful protests too. The law should target only what's necessary to meet the goal. Third, the law must be the least restrictive way to reach that goal. The government needs to show there's no other way to do it without limiting rights more than necessary. If there's a less restrictive option, the law might not pass the strict scrutiny test. If the government can't meet any of these 3 points, the law gets struck down as unconstitutional. This test is especially important in cases involving substantive due process, where courts protect fundamental rights from government interference. For example, laws that restrict free speech based on what people say or believe are often reviewed with strict scrutiny. Courts usually find such laws unconstitutional unless the government can prove it has a very good reason and that the law is the best way to achieve it. In simple terms, strict scrutiny acts like a high bar that the government has to clear before limiting your rights. It makes sure that any law that restricts important freedoms is justified by a really strong reason and is done in the least harmful way. Because of how tough it is to pass, most laws don't survive strict scrutiny review. Knowing about this test helps you understand when courts will closely examine government actions that could affect your rights and how high the bar is for justifying those actions.